You even know how to shoot this, princess? His voice, dripping with contempt, sliced through the air. Laughter followed, labeling her a lost cause, a mere tourist in their world. Her worn clothes and quiet demeanor were mistaken for utter cluelessness, a prime target for cruel amusement. But then she spoke, and the air froze. Her voice, calm and clear, cut through the mockery. FN Ballista, Phantom Sight Configuration, Laula Magnum rounds, silence, absolute, deadly, because what she just said hadn't been publicly mentioned in 6 years. What truth hides behind such quiet eyes? What knowledge turns hardened experts pale with pure, unadulterated shock? Hello, Veteran Biker here. Where are you watching from? Tell me in the comments below. The air inside Phoenix Armory, Arizona, hung thick with the pungent metallic scent of gun oil and the cold, unyielding aroma of steel. It was a space designed for serious business, its walls lined with rifles that gleamed under harsh, unforgiving fluorescent lights, their polished surfaces reflecting the scuffed concrete floor, worn smooth by years of heavy boots. This was no casual retail outlet. It was the revered go-to spot for the truly dedicated hunters who boasted loudly of their kills, collectors with pockets as deep as their obsessions, and ex-military types who treated their firearms not just as tools, but as old, trusted friends, sacred relics of past lives. The very atmosphere hummed with an unspoken gravitas, a silent understanding among its patrons. Into this deeply masculine, self-important domain stepped Ilara Stone, and the incongruity of her presence was immediate, almost jarring. Her wrinkled windbreaker, a muted, unassuming color, seemed to sag on her slight frame, and her faded canvas backpack, clutched casually, made her appear less like a prospective firearm owner, and more like someone who had wandered in from a misplaced yoga class, perhaps searching for a quaint coffee shop or a boutique bakery. Her old sneakers squeaked faintly on the tile, a small, unwelcome sound that amplified the silence she brought with her. The ridicule began swiftly, a low, derisive murmur that rippled through the shop before blossoming into open mockery. Clerk Finn, a young man with a perpetually bored expression, was the first to strike. He lifted a gleaming shotgun from its rack, its formidable barrel glinting, and presented it to her with an exaggerated, condescending flourish. "You wander in here from a yoga class?" he drawled, his voice thick with sarcasm. Then, with a practiced, mocking flip, he held the weapon out to her. "You even know how to shoot this, princess?" His tone was designed to shame, to belittle, to put her firmly in her perceived place. Ilara didn't respond. Her ash-grey eyes, remarkably steady, did not flinch, did not betray any emotion. She didn't acknowledge Finn or his taunt. Instead, her gaze swept across the imposing gun wall, moving with an unhurried, almost deliberate pace, as if she were carefully assessing each and every weapon, absorbing every detail. Her stillness was profound, a stark contrast to the boisterous energy of the shop. Then she spoke, her voice, calm and clear, cut through the underlying hum of the store, utterly devoid of nervousness or doubt. It was a voice that commanded attention, not through loudness, but through its sheer, quiet authority. Ghost Talon, shadow sight configuration, obsidian core rounds. Silence fell across the room like a physical weight, sudden and absolute. The clatter of a rifle being returned to its rack ceased. A hushed intake of breath was heard from the counter, every head turned, every eye fixed on Ilara Stone, a collective tableau of stunned disbelief. What she had just said hadn't been publicly mentioned in 6 years. The specific combination of that weapon system, its custom sight configuration, and the ultra-rare ammunition type was classified knowledge reserved for a very select few. It was a secret, whispered only in the highest echelons of specialized operations, a name that struck a chilling chord of recognition in those who understood its true implications. The casual mockery evaporated, replaced by an unsettling, almost fearful wonder. The sudden, complete silence that followed her words was more impactful than any outburst. That kind of judgment, swiftly turned on its head, hits deep, doesn't it? Like a punch you didn't see coming, reminding you of all the times people sized you up and decided you didn't measure up, only to be proven catastrophically wrong. The air crackled with a new, dangerous tension. The shop itself was a testament to its clientele. It was the go-to spot for serious folks, grizzled hunters who bragged about their impossible kills, their voices booming with embellished tales, collectors with deep pockets and an even deeper obsession, meticulously cleaning their rare pieces, and stoic ex-military types who treated guns not just as tools, but as extensions of their very being, their old friends forged in the fires of conflict. The floor, perpetually scuffed, bore witness to years of heavy boots stomping through, leaving behind trails of oil and countless stories. Ilara stepped further in, her old sneakers squeaking just a bit on the polished tile, a small, unremarked sound in the vast silence that still held the room captive. The receptionist, a woman with perfectly manicured nails painted a sharp crimson and a name tag that read Karen, leaned over the counter. A smirk that could cut glass played on her lips, a look of utter disdain. Karen was the type who thrived on status, always dropping subtle, yet pointed hints about her husband's fancy security job and his connections, making sure everyone knew she belonged here more than anyone else, that her presence validated the establishment. "Sweetie," Karen drawled, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "You sure you didn't mean to hit the bakery next door? We got real hardware here, not bread knives." Her words hung in the air, a blatant insult. A couple of guys nearby chuckled, their laughter nervous, unsure how to react to the new, unsettling dynamic. One of them, an old-timer with a chewed-up cigar hanging precariously from his lip, his belly straining against a faded camo shirt, spat loudly into a nearby spittoon. He was a regular, always boasting about his Vietnam stories, but in reality, he mostly hung around to feel important, to dispense unsolicited wisdom and judgment. "Nah, she thinks this is where they fix cameras or something," he rasped, his voice rough with age and disdain. "Look at her. Probably snaps pics of birds for Instagram." His words were meant to solidify Ilara's image as an utter outsider, a harmless, clueless civilian. Ilara adjusted her backpack strap, a barely perceptible movement, but she didn't flinch. Her ash-grey eyes remained steady, unreadable, as she calmly scanned the displays, her composure unwavering. Then the firearms instructor piped up, a burly man in tactical pants, his bulk straining against the fabric. This was Instructor Vance, the kind of man who was deeply insecure about his own fading skills and relevance, so he picked on newcomers, especially women, to boost his fragile ego and reaffirm his perceived authority. He pointed a thick finger at a wall of assault rifles, his voice booming. "We don't sell cosplay gear, kid. This ain't Comic-Con." The laughter rippled again, colder now, like the very room was testing her, seeing if she'd crack under the pressure or simply run away. Elara finally spoke again, her voice still calm, almost unnervingly so, like she was ordering a simple cup of coffee. "I'm here to choose a weapon." The words hung there, simple yet profound, utterly devoid of any emotional charge, but they shifted something. The underlying current of mockery, which had been so pervasive, paused just for a beat, a flicker of uncertainty, before trying to resume its usual flow. A young apprentice mechanic, wiping grease from his hands with a rag stained perpetually black, sidled up to the counter. His grin twisted his freckled face into something mean-spirited, a desperate eagerness to join the pack. He was Kyle, the sort who hung around the shop after hours, desperate to prove his worth by echoing the louder, more dominant voices. His own life a mess of failed apprenticeships and unpaid bills, his self-worth tied to the opinions of others. He eyed Ilara's faded jeans, the hems frayed from real wear, not fashion, and barked out, his voice loud, designed to carry. "Hey everyone, check out the thrift store special. Bet those sneakers haven't seen a real trail, probably just pavement from the welfare line." The group erupted again, heads turning, finding renewed amusement in the cheap shot. A woman in hunting gear, tall and broad-shouldered, her face hardened by years in the outdoors, the type who masked her own profound loneliness with aggressive posturing, joined in, her voice booming, carrying across the space. Welfare. Nah, she's slumming it for fun, thinking that playing poorly makes her edgy. Get out before you embarrass yourself. More doll. Her words were a brutal dismissal. Ilara paused her scan of the shelves, her fingers tightening briefly on her backpack strap until the fabric creaked faintly. Then, relaxing as she exhaled slowly, her shoulders squaring just enough to hold the space around her, maintaining her impenetrable composure, the apprentice Kyle wasn't done. He leaned in closer, his breath hot with stale coffee, his eyes glinting with a desire to provoke a reaction. "What's in the bag? Lunch from the dumpster. We don't serve beggars here." Snorts of laughter filled the air, but Ilara lifted her chin a fraction, her gaze locking onto a distant, specialized gun case. Her voice, a low murmur, seemed to cut through the rising tension. "Show me the precision models." The apprentice faltered, his rag twisting in his fist, the room's energy spiking with unease, masked as more jeers. Her quiet command, so incongruous with her appearance, left them baffled. Karen, the receptionist, wasn't done, though. She flipped her perfectly styled hair back, glancing at the others for approval, her fake nice smile turning sharp, revealing the underlying malice. "Oh, honey, a weapon. Like for what? Protecting your latte from spilling?" The old-timer Grizzly slapped his knee, wheezing with laughter. "Bet she wants one of those pink pistols they sell to scared housewives. You know, the ones that match your nails, if you had any." He eyed her plain hands, devoid of polish or rings, assuming that meant she was broke or clueless, reinforcing the stereotype. Instructor Vance crossed his arms, leaning against a case of handguns, his entitled grin spreading. "Listen, girl, this shop's for folks who know their way around steel. You look like you wandered in off the bus stop. Maybe try the mall security office instead." A few more customers joined in, their voices a rising chorus of dismissal. One, a snobby collector in a designer jacket, the type who drops thousands on rare pieces just to show off at parties, snorted. "Yeah, or the toy store. They got cap guns that won't scare you." Elara stood there, completely unmoving. She didn't shift her weight, didn't bite her lip, didn't show any sign of discomfort or submission, nothing that gave them the satisfaction they craved. She just nodded once, faintly, a barely perceptible dip of her head, and repeated, her voice clearer now, more resonant, the ghost Talon. "Show me." Her tone wasn't demanding. It was absolute, cutting through the noise like a quiet blade, making the loud, boisterous room feel suddenly a little smaller, a little less certain for a second. Her unwavering resolve was unnerving. Back when Elara was a kid growing up in that massive house on the hill, the kind with imposing gates and ever-present guards, her father, a man of immense power and quiet wisdom, would drill her on restraint. He'd sit her down after dinner, the sprawling mahogany table still scattered with silverware no one else in town could afford, and say, "Elara, power isn't in the shout, it's in the silence that follows." Her family, the Stones, were old money, whispered about in boardrooms and political circles, controlling industries from defense contracts to tech empires, but they raised her plain without frills, without flaunting their immense wealth. She learned to shoot at 8, not for fun or sport, but as part of the rigorous discipline, out on the family's private range where the wind whipped through the pines carrying the scent of gunpowder. One day, a visiting cousin, all dressed up in designer labels, had laughed at her simple dress during a family hunt, scoffing at her appearance. "You look like the help, Elara. Why bother coming out here?" Elara had just picked up the rifle, sighted it steadily, and hit the target dead on without a word. A single, precise shot. The cousin shut up fast, her laughter dying in her throat. Those moments stuck with her, shaping how she moved through the world, always underestimated, always proving them wrong in her own way, through silent, undeniable action. In the shop, the store manager finally emerged from the back, drawn by the unusual silence and tension. He was Mr. Gideon, a middle-aged guy with a clipboard clutched in his hand and a no-nonsense stare. The kind of man who was rich from years of astute deals, but acted like he was above it all, above the petty squabbles of his staff and customers. He overheard the tail end of Elara's demand and raised an eyebrow, a flicker of genuine curiosity in his eyes despite his detached demeanor. "Self-defense pistol, miss? Something small, easy to handle?" he suggested, assuming she was just another clueless woman looking for basic protection. Elara shook her head, her loose brown hair falling across her shoulder, catching the harsh light. Her voice, clear and unwavering, cut through the last lingering whispers of doubt. "A ghost talon. Phantom sight configuration, obsidian core rounds." The words landed like stones in still water, creating ripples of shock. The room froze. Karen's smirk faded, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. The old-timer's cigar drooped, forgotten, from his lip. Instructor Vance's crossed arms uncrossed slowly, a visible sign of his growing unease. Someone in the back, a young hunter trying desperately to fit in, muttered, "That rifle's been off the market for testing." The government pulled it 6 years ago after those incidents. The implication of those incidents hung heavy in the air, hinting at dark, classified events. Mr. Gideon tilted his head, studying her like a complex, unsolvable puzzle. "You know the specs a bit too well for a casual shopper," he stated, a new, cautious respect in his tone. Elara met his gaze, calm as ever, her eyes holding his without a flicker. "I used it on the northern border, in a snowstorm." Whispers started then, low and uneasy, laced with a growing sense of dread. They figured she was bluffing, some kid who'd read too much online, but her eyes didn't waver, didn't sparkle with lies. It was like she'd lived it, the cold biting her skin, the scope fogging just a touch before she cleared it, the bitter taste of ice and wind in her mouth. Her calm certainty was chilling. An ex-cop turned security consultant, his badge still clipped to his belt like a trophy of past glory, pushed through the crowd with a scoff that rumbled from his thick neck. He was Officer Thorne, the arrogant sort, retired early on a pension, but bitter about the world passing him by, always quick to judge anyone who didn't fit his narrow, hardened view of toughness. Staring at Ilara's unadorned face, he boomed, his voice filling the suddenly tense space. "Northern border in a snowstorm? Save the fairy tales for bedtime, sweetheart. You wouldn't last 5 minutes in real cold. Look at that windbreaker, probably from a discount bin." The young hunter, desperate to align with authority, nodded vigorously, his cap pulled low to hide his flushed cheeks, chiming in, "Yeah, and with no gear." She's spinning yarns to impress us. Pathetic. Officer Thorne wasn't satisfied, jabbing a finger toward her backpack. "What's your proof? A selfie with a snowball? We deal in facts here, not fantasies from some wannabe." Murmurs of agreement swelled, the security consultant crossing his arms tighter, his badge glinting mockingly, a symbol of his unchallenged authority. Ilara's hand paused mid-air as she reached for a display clip, her knuckles whitening for a split second before she withdrew it, smoothly folding her arms instead. Her breathing remained even, controlled, despite the rising heat of the room, the mounting pressure. Officer Thorne pressed on, sensing a victory. "Admitted, you're just here to gawk. Leave the real talk to pros." But Ilara tilted her head slightly, her voice slicing in low, a quiet, unexpected challenge. The config handles recoil in sub-zero. "Ever tested it yourself?" The Mockery tried to rebound, but it had cracks now, a new uncertainty in its tone. The collector in the designer jacket, Lord Vane, recovered first, scoffing loudly to save face. "Northern border? Sure, and I'm the president. You look like you couldn't handle a snowball fight." Karen nodded along, her insecurity showing in how she fiddled nervously with her pen, desperate to be part of the dominant group. "Exactly. Probably saw it in a movie. We get dreamers all the time." But Mr. Gideon held up a hand, signaling for quiet, his curiosity finally piqued beyond his usual detachment. Ilara remembered the border like it was etched in her bones, the biting cold, the deafening silence broken only by the wind's howl. She had been recruited young, right after her family's connections, deep within the shadows of the defense world, pulled strings so powerful they moved mountains. She was 20, fresh from the family's private academy, where they taught advanced strategy alongside complex mathematics. The Ghost program, a shadow operation funded by the elite world her parents navigated, took her in, erasing her from all official records, training her in silence, in darkness. One mission, the snow howling around her, she'd lain prone for 12 hours, motionless, the rifle her only warmth, waiting for the precise moment, taking the shot that saved a convoy carrying critical intel. No medals, no names, just a silent nod from a faceless handler. Back home at a gala, her mother, a formidable socialite, had dismissed her as the quiet stone girl, probably not cut out for much. Ilara had just straightened her plain gown and walked away, the weight of her secrets heavier than any jewel on display, a silent burden of extraordinary capabilities. A retired ranger, his forearms mapped with scars from forgotten battles, shuffled forward with a limp that echoed his resentment towards civilians encroaching on his domain. He was grisly, the embittered veteran type, clinging to past glories while dismissing anyone without visible wounds as frauds quick to judge. Glaring at Ilara's steady posture, her unblemished skin, he growled, his voice rough. "Used it in a storm? Bull. I've seen real operators. They don't show up looking like lost tourists. You're insulting us all with that act." A bystander, a wiry salesman in a cheap suit, eager to align with the tough crowd, added sharply, "Insulting. More like wasting our time. Bet she couldn't tell a mag from a clip without Google." Grizzly pounded his cane on the floor, the sound echoing through the tense silence. "Prove your stormtail, girl, or hobble out like you hobbled in." The air crackled with anticipation, the ranger's scars seeming to twitch as he waited, the challenge undeniable. Ilara's eyes narrowed a touch, her fingers drumming once on the counter before stilling, her silence stretching until it pulled the focus tighter, making the room hold its breath. The salesman sneered. "See? Nothing. Just another poser." Suddenly, Ilara reached for a nearby ammo box, flipping it open with astonishing precision, her movements revealing a subtle tattoo on her wrist, a faded, almost invisible insignia that made Grizzly's cane slip from his grasp, clattering to the floor. A tall guy near the ammo shelves, built like a tank with tattoos snaking up his neck, the insecure type who bullied to hide his own failures as a weekend warrior, grabbed a heavy sniper model off the rack. 9 kilograms of solid, intimidating steel. He thrust it toward her with a sneering laugh. "All right, hot shot. If you're so bored or toughened, try lifting this barrel without whining." The room perked up, sensing fresh humiliation, another easy target. Another customer, a stocky man with a beer gut and a chip on his shoulder from being overlooked in his own life, added with a cruel laugh, "With wrists that thin? She probably can't even lift the bolt. Bet she'll drop it and cry." Snickers echoed again, Instructor Vance nodding in approval, enjoying the spectacle. Ilara reached out, her hands steady, and hoisted the rifle one-handed, the motion fluid, effortless, no strain showing in her posture, defying all expectations. She checked the scope with a quick glance, then twisted the suppressor just so, her fingers knowing the grooves by feel, an intimate dance with the weapon. The tall guy's jaw slackened, his confidence faltering. Lord Vane muttered, "Lucky grab, but what, she's fumbling now, can't even toggle the safety." Ilara set the gun down gently, her voice even, completely unperturbed. "I'm adjusting for wind drift. Have you ever used a triple sight system? It takes more than muscle." The energy dipped lower, uncertainty mixing with the cruelty, a palpable shift. Karen tried to rally, but her pen stopped clicking nervously. "Wind drift in here? Give me a break." But her voice lacked the earlier bite, like she was forcing it to stay mean, her conviction wavering. Years earlier, during a family retreat in the mountains, Ilara's older brother, the golden boy of the family, always flashing their wealth, but deeply insecure about his own skill, had challenged her similarly. "Come on, sis, lift this pack, bet you can't." She'd done it easily, then unpacked it methodically while he huffed in frustration. Their father watched, nodding. "That's the Stone way. They no-show, just do." It was that rigid discipline, that unwavering philosophy, that got her into the Ghost program, where they stripped away the family name and built her into something invisible, powerful, something utterly lethal. The brutal pace of Thunderhawk Base continued unabated, a relentless grind designed to expose every weakness and shatter every pretense. Yet, Amidst the collective exhaustion and simmering frustrations that pervaded the ranks, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift began to ripple through the new recruits, a growing undercurrent of grudging curiosity directed at Elara Stone. Her unwavering composure, her almost supernatural endurance in the face of relentless taunts and physical punishment began to sow insidious seeds of doubt in the minds of even her most ardent detractors. They had expected her to break, to cry, to lash out in frustration, to crumble under the sustained pressure. Instead, she merely absorbed their cruelty, transforming it into an invisible, internal fuel that propelled her forward with an unnerving, quiet power. Her silence, once a target for their mockery, became a fortress, an impenetrable wall that only served to magnify their confusion and increasingly their unease. That night, during a complex night drill, the cadets were tasked with establishing a perimeter under simulated enemy fire, a chaotic baptism by fire. Flares sporadically lit the inky black sky, casting fleeting eerie shadows that danced like malevolent spirits, while instructors bellowed chaotic, disorienting orders, creating an atmosphere of utter pandemonium. The air crackled with palpable tension, the sounds of mock gunfire and distant explosions designed to test their mettle under extreme pressure. Elara Stone worked alone, a solitary, efficient silhouette amidst the swirling chaos, moving with a fluid grace that seemed out of place in the frantic environment. She secured a rope barrier with steady, unhurried hands, her movements precise even in the dim, flickering light, almost a meditative dance, as if she were performing a private ritual. A cadet named Max, stocky and loud, with a swagger born of misplaced confidence and a deep-seated need for validation, decided she was an easy target. He saw an opportunity to gain favor with the instructors and his peers, to assert his dominance in the murky gloom. He grabbed her rope, yanking it free with a malicious grin that was barely visible in the dark, then deliberately tossed it into a muddy puddle, coating it in thick, foul-smelling grime. "Oops," he said, his voice dripping with false innocence, loud enough for others nearby to hear, a performative act of sabotage. "Guess you're not cut out for this, huh?" The other cadets nearby laughed, their flashlights bobbing like a cruel audience to the unfolding spectacle. Enjoying her apparent misfortune, their voices echoing in the night. Elara Stone knelt, her movements calm and deliberate, picked up the mud-caked rope and began to work, her fingers moving methodically, unperturbed by the dirt or the jeers. Max wasn't done. He kicked dirt onto her hands, deliberately coating the rope further in grime, ensuring she had to start from scratch, a petty act of continued torment. "Keep trying, princess," he taunted, his voice thick with condescension, the words designed to break her spirit. "Maybe you'll get it by morning." The group roared with laughter, their mockery echoing into the silent night. Elara Stone paused, her hand still, then slowly looked up at him. Her eyes, usually so placid and unreadable, held a quiet, piercing sharpness that momentarily caught Max completely off guard. A flash of something he couldn't quite decipher, a hint of steel beneath the calm exterior. "You done?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm, a low hum of authority that belied its volume. Max blinked, thrown off by her unexpected directness, but quickly laughed it off, trying to regain his bravado, though a flicker of uncertainty remained. Elara Stone went back to work, her face unreadable, her hands moving with astonishing speed and efficiency. The rope was clean again in seconds, securely tied, defying his efforts to sabotage her, leaving him feeling hollow and defeated, his actions rendered meaningless. Later, when the drill ended and the frantic energy subsided, Max's own perimeter barrier was found to be loose, costing his squad critical points. No one saw Elara Stone near it, no direct action was observed, but Cadet Lyra, a quiet, observant recruit who had been watching Elara Stone closely from the beginning, hid a small, knowing smile in the shadows, a silent acknowledgement of poetic justice. The silent girl, it seemed, had a way of influencing outcomes without lifting a visible finger. The whispers about Elara Stone intensified after that, evolving from outright derision to a complex mix of suspicion, awe, and a burgeoning reluctant respect. Cadets who had previously ignored or mocked her now started to glance at her during breaks, trying to piece her together, her enigmatic presence unsettling their established norms and challenging their preconceived notions of what a soldier should be. Elara Stone didn't seem to care. She sat on the grass, methodically cleaning her gear, her face as blank as ever, a picture of undisturbed serenity amidst the buzzing curiosity. Kira Thorne leaned over to Zane Maxwell, her voice low but sharp, filled with a renewed, almost desperate disdain. "Bet she's got some sad story. Poor kid from nowhere trying to prove she's somebody." Zane scoffed, his earlier confidence seemingly restored, though a hint of uncertainty lingered in his eyes. "Yeah, well, she's proven she's a nobody." Elara Stone's fingers paused on her laces just for a moment, a barely perceptible hesitation, a fleeting acknowledgement of their words. Then she continued tying, her movement slow, deliberate, like she was sealing something profoundly important inside her, a secret protected from their prying eyes and cruel judgments, a resolve hardening within her very core. The next morning brought a series of specialized drills, each designed to test specific combat proficiencies, pushing the cadets beyond their physical limits into the realm of mental agility. One such drill was a language comprehension exercise, simulating a vital intelligence briefing with foreign allies. Most cadets struggled with the rapid-fire translations and complex diplomatic nuances, their brows furrowed in concentration, frustration etched on their faces as they stumbled over unfamiliar sounds. The instructor, a fluent linguist, introduced a simulated scenario involving a critical message from a liaison officer from a Middle Eastern country, speaking rapidly in Pashto, a language rarely encountered by the average soldier. Its guttural sounds alien to most ears. Many cadets looked bewildered, struggling to grasp even the basic context, let alone the intricate details of the message. Suddenly, the liaison officer, an actual foreign dignitary brought in for the exercise to provide an authentic challenge, stumbled over a key phrase in English, his frustration clear, his words becoming muddled. Before anyone else could react, before the instructor could intervene, Elara Stone, who had been standing quietly at the back, observing, stepped forward. Her voice, calm and clear, filled the tense silence, cutting through the confusion with surprising authority. "Sir, if I may," she began, then continued seamlessly, speaking a fluent, nuanced Pashto. She clarified the dignitary's intended meaning, relayed the critical intelligence, and even added a culturally appropriate phrase of reassurance, all delivered with impeccable pronunciation and grammar, a mastery that was astounding. The dignitary's face lit up in surprise and profound gratitude, a rare moment of genuine connection and understanding. The room went silent. Cadets stared, mouths agape, their earlier assumptions crumbling into dust. Major Serafina, the tough, no-nonsense head of the linguistic department, and even Captain Kyle, who was observing from the sidelines, looked utterly stunned. Kyle, usually so composed and unreadable, raised an eyebrow, a flicker of genuine bewilderment in his eyes. He had dismissed her as a mere supply crew member, a quota filler. Yet here she was, effortlessly navigating a language most soldiers spent years trying to master, a skill so unexpected it defied all logic and shattered his rigid worldview, forcing him to reconsider everything he thought he knew about her. "Where did she learn that?" he murmured, almost to himself, the question hanging unanswered in the charged air, a profound mystery. Elara Stone simply stepped back, blending into the background as if nothing extraordinary had happened, her stoic composure unbroken. The incident, though brief, left a powerful ripple. It was a skill that profoundly contradicted every assumption they had made about her, painting a portrait of hidden depths that sent shivers down their spines. The long-range shooting exam was the ultimate make-or-break moment, a definitive test of marksmanship under extreme pressure. 5 shots, 400 meters, 5 bullseyes, or you're out. The rules were clear and unforgiving, etched in stone. The cadets lined up, nervous, fidgeting with their scopes, whispering anxiously about wind speed and trajectory, their apprehension palpable, their hands trembling slightly. Kira Thorne went first, her movements jerky with anxiety, missing 2 shots, her face pale with frustration and shame as she stepped back, her dream of glory dimming before her eyes. Zane Maxwell hit 4, cursing under his breath about the fickle wind, barely passing, his usual swagger replaced by a scowl of discontent. Then Elara Stone walked up. Her movements were calm, almost mechanical, completely devoid of the nervous energy that gripped the others, a study in quiet confidence. She settled into position, her body becoming one with the rifle, a picture of absolute unshakable focus. 5 shots, 5 perfect hits, dead center. No hesitation, no scope adjustments, no apparent struggle with the wind or distance, just the precise, rhythmic sound of the rifle discharging, a symphony of deadly accuracy. The range officer blinked at the target, then at her, his expression a mix of disbelief and professional awe, a rare sight. "Vance!" he called out, his voice tinged with incredulity, resonating across the range. "Perfect score!" A colonel watching from a distance, an older man with grey hair and a chest full of gleaming medals. Colonel Sterling, a figure of immense authority and experience, leaned forward, his eyes narrowing, studying Elara Stone intently through a pair of binoculars. "Who trained her?" he murmured to his aide, his voice barely a whisper, a genuine question, heavy with implication. "That's a Spec Ops trigger, unmistakable." His words, though quiet, carried immense weight, a professional assessment that bordered on revelation, confirming what some had only dared to imagine. Jackson Reed overheard, scoffing loudly, stubbornly refusing to accept what he had just witnessed, clinging to his skepticism like a lifeline. "Fluky," he said, loud enough for Elara Stone to hear, trying to dismiss her achievement as mere chance. "Let's see her in combat." But during the equipment check after the range, the officer found Elara Stone's rifle had a misaligned sight that nobody else had noticed, a subtle flaw that would have thrown off any other shooter. She'd still hit every shot, compensating perfectly, intuitively adjusting for the floor with an uncanny awareness, as if the rifle were an extension of her own nervous system. The officer shook his head, muttering, "That's not luck. That's skill." The quiet confirmation solidified the growing, unsettling mystery surrounding her, deepening the enigma. The next day in the mess hall, Ilara Stone's tray was empty. She'd been last in line and the food had run out, a common occurrence for those on the bottom rung of the pecking order, a cruel indicator of one's place. She sat anyway, sipping water, her face calm, completely unperturbed by the hunger or the injustice, displaying a resilience that was almost unnerving. A group of cadets led by a girl named Cadet Anya, tall and smug with a laugh that carried across the noisy room, saw her and decided to have some fun. Anya, ever eager to assert her perceived superiority and relish in others' misfortune, walked over and dropped a half-eaten apple onto Ilara Stone's tray. "Here," she said, her voice dripping with mock pity, dripping with condescension. "Can't have you starving, right? You need strength to what? Carry our bags?" The table behind her burst into laughter, a cruel, echoing chorus that filled the hall. Ilara Stone looked at the apple, then at Anya, her eyes steady, unblinking, devoid of anger or fear. "Thanks," she said, picking it up and taking a slow, deliberate bite, as if it were a gourmet meal, relishing its simple flavor. Anya's smile faltered, her smugness dissolving into confusion and frustration. She'd expected a reaction, an outburst. Anything but this quiet acceptance and a complete lack of emotional response. The group kept laughing, but it was forced now, an uneasy sound, their amusement tainted by Ilara's impenetrable composure, a growing sense of unease. Ilara Stone finished the apple, core and all, and set the tray aside. As she stood to leave, she brushed past Anya, her shoulder just grazing her enough to make Anya step back, an almost imperceptible assertion of presence, a silent challenge. The room went quiet for a moment, watching her go. A strange new reverence beginning to form, a recognition of an intangible power. The combat simulation was the real test, the ultimate proving ground. One-on-one, hand-to-hand, no weapons, just raw skill and controlled aggression, a direct confrontation that would expose true metal. Ilara Stone was paired against Zane Maxwell, who towered over her, his fists clenched, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. He saw this as his opportunity to reclaim his lost dominance, to finally put her in her place, to break her completely, to erase the humiliation he had endured. Before the whistle blew, he charged, driven by pure aggression and a desperate need for revenge, grabbing her collar and slamming her against the wall with brutal force. Her shirt tore, the fabric ripping violently from her shoulder down her back, exposing a faded black tattoo across her scapula. The squad burst into laughter, a cruel collective roar of amusement. "She's inked up too," Kira Thorne jeered, her voice dripping with scorn, a fresh wave of derision. "What is this? A biker gang?" Zane leaned in, his face inches from hers, his breath hot against her ear, his eyes burning with fury. "This isn't daycare, Vance. It's a battlefield. Go home, rookie." His words were meant to break her, to instill fear, to shatter her resolve. Ilara Stone didn't move, her eyes locked on his, steady, unblinking, a terrifying stillness. "Let go," she said, her voice low, a soft growl of warning, a profound command that seemed to vibrate in the air. Zane laughed, a nervous, uncertain sound, but his grip loosened just for a second. a fleeting moment of overconfidence, a fatal error. She stepped back, turned, and the torn shirt fell lower, revealing the full tattoo, a coiled black hawk with razor-sharp talons, its wings spread wide, ready to strike, an emblem of predatory power, a mark of something ancient and deadly. The yard went silent. The Colonel Sterling, the one who'd been watching with growing intrigue, stepped forward, his boots crunching on the gravel, the sound amplified in the sudden quiet. His eyes widened, his face paling, a look of profound shock and immediate recognition. "Who gave you the right to wear that mark?" he asked, his voice shaking, barely a whisper, laced with an almost religious awe. Elara Stone stood there, her back straight, the tattoo stark against her skin, a symbol of power and unfathomable mystery. "I didn't ask for it," she said quietly, her voice still. "It was given by Night Eagle himself. I trained under him for 6 years." The Colonel froze, then straightened, his hand snapping to his forehead in a crisp, unwavering salute, a gesture of ultimate respect that reverberated through the stunned crowd. The other officers stared, their mouths open in disbelief, their training and experience unable to comprehend this anomaly. Zane Maxwell stumbled back, his face drained of color, his earlier bravado utterly shattered, replaced by raw terror and dawning horror. An aide whispered, his voice hushed with awe, "No one bears that tattoo unless they're his final student." Kira Thorne's smirk vanished, replaced by a look of sheer, unadulterated terror. She looked away, her hands trembling, the weight of her cruelty suddenly crushing her. The quiet girl they had mocked, the one they had dismissed, was anything but ordinary. She was a legend, a force of nature, walking among them, and they had just witnessed her terrifying, undeniable unveiling. The profound revelation of Elara Stone's tattoo, the ancient, fearsome symbol of the Night Eagle, had not merely silenced Thunderhawk Base, it had shattered its very foundation of perception. The suffocating silence that followed was heavy with a mix of awe, trepidation, and a dawning, terrible understanding. No longer was the air filled with the casual arrogance of recruits. It now thrummed with a nervous energy, a collective re-evaluation of every dismissive glance, every cruel taunt previously cast upon her. Her mere presence, once overlooked, now carried the weight of a legend, a testament to power unseen and secrets fiercely guarded. The previous day's petty cruelties felt like dangerous blasphemy, an unforgivable affront to a force far beyond their comprehension. The whispers continued, but their tone had shifted dramatically, from derision to a hushed, almost fearful reverence. Cadets who had once openly scoffed now avoided direct eye contact, their bravado evaporating like mist in the blazing Texas sun. Their previous confidence crumbled, replaced by a tangible unease, a constant gnawing awareness of her terrifying capabilities. Colonel Sterling, the seasoned officer who had saluted her, was the first to fully regain his composure. His initial shock had given way to a profound sense of awe, his military bearing reasserting itself with an almost desperate formality. His continued stance at attention, his unwavering salute, served as a powerful public endorsement, solidifying Elara Stone's new, undeniable status, silencing any lingering doubts in the eyes of everyone present. He had recognized a truth that had been hidden in plain sight. The following morning, during a critical strategy briefing in the main lecture hall, Elara Stone sat in the back, maintaining her usual quiet demeanor, her notebook open, her pen moving quickly across the page. The instructor for this session was Major Serafina, a brilliant tactician known for her razor-sharp mind and unforgiving, precise assessments of military strategy. She was explaining complex unit movements and defensive perimeters on a large digital map when her eyes, usually scanning the room for signs of inattention or misunderstanding, locked onto Ilara. Her tone was sharp, cutting through the low murmurs of the room with the precision of a scalpel, demanding attention. "Vance," she began, using Ilara's last name with a new, almost hesitant respect. "You got something to add, or are you just doodling back there?" The room collectively turned, a ripple of anticipation. They expected Ilara Stone to shrink, to stammer an apology, to revert to her quiet, unassuming self. But Ilara Stone looked up, her pen still, her gaze direct, calm, unwavering. "Your flanks exposed on the left," she stated, her voice quiet but clear, devoid of challenge, simply presenting an undeniable fact. "You'd lose half your unit in an ambush." Her words, delivered without fanfare, carried an unsettling weight of absolute certainty, a chilling premonition. Major Serafina blinked, caught entirely off guard, her own sharp intellect momentarily stunned. She glanced at the intricate diagram on the digital board, then back at Ilara Stone, a flicker of genuine surprise in her eyes, mixed with a dawning understanding. "Explain," she commanded, her voice betraying a hint of intrigue, a rare moment of seeking input from a cadet. Ilara Stone stood, walked to the board, and with confident, fluid movements, drew a quick adjustment, her lines precise, unerring, almost intuitive. "Shift your scouts here," she said, tapping a specific spot on the diagram. "Cuts their angle of attack, forces them into a kill zone." The room was silent, every cadet hanging on her words, their previous prejudices momentarily forgotten, watching her with a newfound, almost desperate intensity. Major Serafina nodded slowly, a rare, profound sign of approval. Noted, "Sit down." As Ilara Stone returned to her seat, a faint, almost inaudible whisper from Kira Thorne carried across the hushed room. Teacher's pet now. But Major Serafina, with her notoriously sharp ears, overheard. "Quiet, cadet!" she snapped, her voice like a whip, cutting through the last vestiges of insolence. "She just saved your hypothetical lives." Kira Thorne's face burned with humiliation, a deep crimson flush, and the room shifted, eyes lingering on Ilara. Stone, with an undeniable growing respect, no longer just fear, but a dawning acknowledgement of her true, terrifying capabilities. The name Night Eagle was more than just a name. It was a ghost itself, a chilling whisper from a unit supposedly erased from official records years ago, shrouded in deepest, impenetrable secrecy. No one spoke of it openly, fearing the repercussions of even acknowledging its existence, but the stories lingered. Missions that never officially happened, their outcomes shrouded in shadow, operatives who vanished into the deepest folds of covert operations, never to be seen again, a legendary leader who trained only a select, elite few, each marked with that distinct, powerful tattoo. Ilara Stone didn't look at Colonel Sterling, didn't look at anyone. She pulled her torn shirt back over her shoulder, deliberately obscuring the powerful symbol beneath, and walked to the edge of the yard, her steps slow, deliberate, each movement carrying the immense weight of her profound presence. The silence followed her, heavy, unbroken, a testament to her enduring impact, a silent aura of power. Zane Maxwell, however, a man defined by his colossal pride and his desperate need for dominance, simply could not let it go. His ego, deeply wounded by her earlier public demonstration of skill, by his own utter humiliation, screamed for retribution. He stood in the middle of the yard, his fists clenched, trembling with frustrated fury, his voice echoing, filled with a desperate last-ditch effort to reclaim his shattered authority, to prove he was still the alpha. "So, what if she has a tattoo?" he shouted, his voice cracking with a mixture of raw rage and primal fear. "Prove it in a real fight, not just some fancy gun trick." The cadets looked at each other, unsure, a volatile mixture of anticipation and fear in their eyes, waiting for the inevitable brutal clash. Elara Stone stopped walking. She turned, her eyes now cold, unyielding, twin pools of dark intensity that seemed to pierce through Zane's bravado. "If that's what you want," she said, her voice a low, steady challenge, devoid of emotion, yet ringing with absolute, terrifying certainty. She didn't fix her shirt, letting it hang, the tattoo still visible, a stark warning, a visual statement of her undeniable power. Her stance was calm, but undeniably unyielding, rooted to the earth like an ancient immovable force. Zane Maxwell charged, fueled by blind rage and a desperate primal need to win, swinging wildly, his fists aimed at her face, a flurry of uncontrolled, amateurish aggression. Elara Stone dodged every punch, her movements fluid, almost effortless. A blur of calculated precision. She moved like water, yielding yet unbreakable, absorbing his force without resistance, making his efforts seem clumsy and futile. "Hit me already!" he yelled, his breath ragged, gasping, his frustration mounting as his frantic blows met only empty air, hitting nothing but the wind. She didn't. She let him tire himself out, his swings growing sloppier, his breath coming in ragged, desperate gasps, his form deteriorating with every missed strike, his energy draining rapidly, leaving him vulnerable. Then, in one fluid motion, a sudden, devastating blur, she stepped forward, a snap choke, her arm was around his neck, a twist, a pull, 8 seconds, Zane Maxwell collapsed, unconscious, his body limp on the ground, a pitiful heap of utterly defeated bravado. No one spoke. The silence was absolute, profound, broken only by the shallow, ragged breathing of the unconscious Zane. It was a silence filled with awe, fear, and the crushing weight of undeniable truth, a moment that would forever be etched in their memories. Captain Kyle walked over, his face unreadable, a stoic mask that gave nothing away, his presence commanding immediate attention. He looked down at Zane Maxwell's prone form, then at Elara Stone, her posture still unwavering, her eyes holding an ancient calm, then at the stunned group of cadets, their faces pale with shock. "Effective immediately," he said, his voice ringing with undeniable authority, each word a hammer blow against their previous notions. "Elara Vance is honorary instructor. You will learn from her. You will obey her." Elara Stone didn't nod, didn't smile, didn't show any outward sign of triumph or self-satisfaction. She simply picked up her backpack, pulled her torn shirt closed, deliberately obscuring the symbol of her power from prying eyes, and walked off. The cadets parted for her, their eyes downcast, their laughter gone, replaced by a profound, humbling silence, a recognition of her unquestionable authority. The transformation was complete. The outcast had become the teacher, a silent, powerful force. During a live fire exercise the next day, an intricate simulation designed to test their battlefield responsiveness, Alara Stone was assigned to lead a small team through a mock urban assault. Her group included Kira Thorne, who still harbored deep resentment. Kira rolled her eyes at the assignment, her contempt still simmering, though now carefully hidden beneath a thin veneer of forced obedience. As they moved through the complex course, a labyrinth of simulated buildings and traps, Kira deliberately ignored Alara Stone's clear signals, rushing ahead with reckless abandon, eager to prove herself superior despite their new ranks, desperate to reclaim some sense of control. Her recklessness triggered a tripwire that set off a deafening siren, blasting through the training grounds, echoing ominously. The exercise halted abruptly, and Captain Kyle stormed over, his face red with fury, his voice booming. "Vance, your team's a mess!" he bellowed, his voice filled with frustration. Kira Thorne smirked, whispering conspiratorially to Jackson Reed, "Told you she's useless." Alara Stone stood there, her hands steady, her composure unruffled, radiating calm even in the face of Kyle's wrath. "Thorne broke formation," she stated, her voice quiet but firm, directly attributing the fault. "I signaled her to wait." Kyle turned to Kira Thorne, whose earlier smirk vanished. She shrugged, feigning innocence, her eyes avoiding his direct gaze. "Didn't see it," she lied, her voice falsely casual. The group snickered, subtly blaming Alara Stone for the failure, a collective act of scapegoating. Alara Stone didn't argue, didn't defend herself, didn't engage in their petty games. She simply nodded and said, "Understood, sir," accepting the reprimand without complaint. But as they reset for the drill, an overhead drone replay, silently observed by Captain Kale on his handheld device, showed Kira Thorne ignoring the signal, clear as day, her deliberate insubordination undeniable. Kyle watched the footage, his jaw tight with suppressed anger, then docked Kira Thorne's squad points, a silent but powerful retribution that went beyond mere words. The group's laughter died, replaced by a cold, hard silence, and Kira Thorne's face went pale, the weight of her deceit and its consequences crushing her. Justice, it seemed, moved quietly but effectively in Alara Stone's wake. The entire camp changed after that. The air felt heavier, charged with a new respect. The whispers became quieter, replaced by a tense, focused energy, a collective desire to observe and learn. Alara Stone now stood at the front of the yard the next day, her worn backpack over one shoulder, her faded t-shirt swapped for a plain black one, a subtle but distinct shift in her presentation. She didn't bark orders, didn't raise her voice, didn't need to. Her very presence commanded attention, a silent force. She just showed them rifle drills, combat stances, intricate moves that looked deceptively simple, yet took years of relentless practice to perfect, moves that spoke volumes without a single word. The cadets watched, some scribbling notes furiously, others just staring, utterly captivated by her effortless precision, her uncanny efficiency. Kira Thorne sat in the back, her arms crossed, her face pale, the arrogance gone, replaced by a grudging, resentful silence, a forced humility. Zane Maxwell wasn't there. Word had spread like wildfire that he'd been sent to medical after his brutal defeat, then quietly reassigned to a desk job at a base in the middle of nowhere, his pride and career shattered beyond repair. No one talked about it openly, but everyone knew. His downfall served as a stark, unspoken warning, a chilling reminder of the consequences of hubris. In a first aid drill, a crucial test of their ability to act under pressure, Elara Stone was paired with Jackson Reed, who'd mocked her mercilessly in the mess hall during the earlier, more turbulent days. The drill required them to treat a simulated casualty, a dummy rigged with realistic wounds under intense time pressure, a crucial test of quick thinking and practical application in a crisis scenario. Jackson, still desperate to show off and redeem himself in the eyes of his peers and instructors after his previous humiliations, saw an opportunity. He aggressively shoved Elara Stone aside as she calmly reached for the bandage kit. "I got this," he declared, his voice loud and laced with a false bravado, designed to be heard by the surrounding group. "You'd probably just make it worse." His words were meant to belittle, to strip her of any perceived competence. However, his arrogance quickly betrayed him. He fumbled clumsily with the bandages, wrapping them too loose, allowing fake blood to seep dramatically through the dummy's simulated wounds, a clear and undeniable demonstration of his incompetence and lack of focus. The instructor, a medic named Nurse Wells, a man known for his directness and unwavering standards, shook his head, his disapproval palpable. "You're killing him, cadet," Wells stated bluntly, his voice firm, echoing through the small, tense training area. Jackson Reed's face reddened with a mix of embarrassment and raw anger, and he instinctively snapped, "She distracted me," pointing an accusatory finger at Elara Stone, desperately trying to shift blame and deflect attention from his own failure. The group, initially, laughed, egging him on, their previous biases still strong, but their laughter was now hesitant, laced with a growing uncertainty, no longer confident in their mockery. Elara Stone, however, remained a picture of absolute composure. She stepped forward, her hands steady, unhesitating, moving with a fluid precision that belied the urgency of the situation. In seconds, she redressed the bandages, her wraps tight, perfect, and expertly applied, a masterclass in efficient life-saving application. Nurse Wells watched, his expression shifting from disapproval to genuine admiration. He nodded slowly, a rare smile touching his lips. "That's how it's done," he said, his words a clear and undeniable vindication of Elara Stone's capabilities. Jackson Reed, defeated and humiliated, stormed off, muttering curses under his breath, his ego utterly bruised. But the group's laughter had died completely, replaced by murmurs of surprise and a new respect dawning in their eyes, replacing the old contempt. Later, Nurse Wells, recognizing a rare talent, pulled Elara Stone aside, his voice quiet, filled with genuine admiration. He handed her a medic patch, a small yet significant symbol of recognition for exceptional skill. She took it, her face blank, her emotions still impenetrable, and simply slipped it into her bag, a quiet testament to her unwavering competence and silent dedication, acknowledging the recognition without a hint of self-satisfaction. A week later, during a break in the routine, an officer approached Elara Stone. He was young, visibly nervous, clutching a clipboard, visibly intimidated by her new, undeniable presence and the formidable reputation that now preceded her. "Ma'am," he began, his voice low, almost a whisper, laced with deference, a stark contrast to how cadets were usually addressed. "There's someone here for you." Elara Stone looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. Curiosity, perhaps, or wary recognition of an impending change. She followed him to the base's main entrance, a place usually bustling but now strangely quiet. There, a man stood waiting. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with short-cropped hair and a face that gave nothing away. A mirror of Ilara's own stoicism, yet radiating immense silent power. He wore a black jacket and jeans, no uniform, but the guard at the gate stepped back instinctively when he moved, a clear sign of his unspoken, formidable command, a deference rarely seen. Colonel Sterling was there too, standing a respectful distance away, his hands clasped behind his back. A rare display of formality, his eyes fixed on the arriving figure with a mix of awe and respect. "General," he said, nodding to the man, a respectful, deferential tone in his voice, a salutation reserved for the highest echelons of military command. The man didn't respond immediately to the colonel. He looked directly at Ilara Stone, his eyes softening for a fleeting moment, a subtle shift in his otherwise impenetrable demeanor, a hint of something deeply personal, profoundly intimate. Ilara Stone walked up to him, her face unreadable, and stopped a few feet away, maintaining a slight respectful distance that spoke of their unique dynamic. "You didn't have to come," she said, her voice barely audible, a private exchange whispered in the public arena, a touch of concern in her tone. He tilted his head, almost smiling, a ghost of an expression, a flicker of warmth in his stern features. "Yeah," he said, his voice deep and calm, resonating with a quiet authority that filled the space. "I did." The cadets, watching from a distance, their curiosity piqued to an unbearable degree, went utterly quiet, their previous murmurs dying out completely, their eyes fixed on the unexpected reunion, mesmerized. Kira Thorne, standing nearby, her face pale with dread, dropped her water bottle, the plastic clattering loudly on the ground, the sound echoing in the sudden profound silence, a testament to her utter shock and dawning horror. Colonel Sterling, sensing the moment of monumental revelation, cleared his throat, addressing the stunned group, his voice booming with the unexpected news, shattering the silence with an announcement that would forever rewrite Ilara Stone's story within the base. "This is General Ares Vex," he announced, his voice ringing with undeniable authority. "Ilara Stone's husband." The words hit like a physical shockwave, reverberating through the entire camp, redefining everything they thought they knew about Ilara Stone, utterly shattering their carefully constructed perceptions. General Ares Vex didn't say anything else. He simply put a hand on Ilara Stone's shoulder, a gesture of silent communion, of deep connection and understanding that needed no words, and they walked to the beat-up pickup truck she'd arrived in. The engine roared to life, a powerful rumble, and they drove off, the dust kicking up behind them, leaving the entire camp in a stunned, silent tableau. No one moved, no one spoke, no one even dared to breathe until the truck was long gone, swallowed by the distant horizon, leaving an indelible mark on Thunderhawk Base. The world of Phoenix Armory, Arizona, had been irrevocably turned on its head. News of Ilara Stone's astounding display of skill, her classified knowledge, and her unimaginable connections spread like wildfire, far beyond the confines of the gun store, carried by whispers and second-hand accounts. It wasn't just a local story, it became an urban legend, a whispered tale among military circles and intelligence communities, a subject of awe and speculation. A gun blogger with a microphone clipped to his collar, his phone perpetually filming for clicks. Vlogger Apex, the opportunistic sort who exploited drama for views while hiding his envy of real expertise, thrust his device closer to Elara even as she walked towards the general. "Adjusting for what?" he demanded, his voice smug. "Triple sight? Sounds like buzz from a newbie tutorial. You're bombing. You might as well log off." A cluster of onlookers, casual browsers with crumpled shopping lists in their pockets, gathered around him. One, a lanky teen with ear gauges, jeered, "Buzz! She's full of hot air. Probably learned from memes. Fail video gold." The blogger zoomed in, his lens whirring, the atmosphere pulsed with anticipation. "Spill your sources," Apex demanded, his jaw set firm, "or we're exposing you as the joke." A vein pulsed faintly at Elara's neck before she exhaled, her hands clasping briefly. "The system calibrates for variables you ignore." But the teen's phone buzzed with notifications, a leaked spec sheet direct from a classified military network that made Apex's microphone tremble in his grip. The truth, once confined to her, was beginning to leak, and it was devastatingly real. The shop had a demo range out back, a controlled setup with targets at 100 meters, shielded by 4 layers of military-grade glass, tough stuff meant to simulate real barriers. Mr. Gideon, the owner, a grizzled veteran with a limp from some old war, the type who's entitled and status-obsessed in his little kingdom, flipped the switch to activate it. "Fine, show us then," he grumbled, still skeptical but intrigued. "One shot, but don't embarrass yourself." Elara nodded, picking up the rifle again, her movements precise, no wasted energy. She aimed in 2 seconds flat, breath steady, and squeezed the trigger. Ping! The sound was sharp, the bullet slicing through all 4 panels of military-grade glass, burying itself dead center in the red dot target behind them. The room went dead quiet. A mercenary type in the corner, scarred and quiet until now, whispered she didn't even use her eyes fully. It was instinct. Mr. Gideon stared at the shattered glass, murmuring, "Only one person ever pulled that off. But she disappeared years ago." The shock hung thick, the mockery crumbling into dust. The old-timer, Grizzly, dropped his cigar, stamping it out awkwardly. "How?" But no one answered. Elara's mind didn't drift, but her hand brushed the backpack where a faded photo poked out just the edge, showing a younger her with her parents at a formal dinner, suits and gowns everywhere but her in simple clothes, smiling faintly. The photo crumpled a bit under her touch, a poignant reminder of the life before the program swallowed her. A survivalist with a beard braided into ropes, his vest pockets bulging with tools, the paranoid type who preaches conspiracy but craves validation from the crowd, stepped up with a rumble. Disappeared? Convenient. But that shot's a fluke. I've rigged tougher setups in my backyard. You'd faint at the sight. A pair of hobbyists, middle-aged dads with holsters, one with glasses, fogging, mocked. "A fluke? She's cheating somehow. You see that stance? Amateur hour." The survivalist brandished a tool. "Rig your proof, lady, or crawl back to your bubble." The tension coiled, the survivalist's braid swinging. Elara's breath deepened, her fingers flexing once on the rifle stock before releasing. The hobbyist smirked. "Cheats caught!" Yet a glass shard from the shattered panels glinted with an etched emblem, a classified marker that sent the man's tool clattering down. A man in tactical gear strode up next, his smirk forced now. This was Cadet Orion, the kind of guy who's fake nice until threatened, then turns cruel to reclaim his spot. Watch too many movies, huh? That's got to be it. Disaster! Another guy nearby, lanky and loud, laughed along. Or Call of Duty marathons. Girls like her think games are real. The old sniper, white-haired and grizzled, pointed at her stance. No formal school teaches that footwork. It's all wrong. Elara didn't respond. She simply placed a bullet on the table and spun it, revealing a tiny marking on the side. Alpha 7's stealth. A mercenary stumbled back, his voice shaking. "That's a ghost program tag!" Whispers exploded, then low and frantic. Karen's pen stopped clicking. Instructor Vance swallowed hard. The ghost program, erased from records, but rumors lingered in her family's circles. Her father had ties, pulling her in after she aced every test they threw. One night after her first kill, she'd stared at a mirror in a safe house. No makeup, just blood-speckled face. She wiped it clean without a tremor. Back at a family event later, an aunt had sneered. "Emily, you look so ordinary. Why not try harder?" She'd spun a fork on the table, letting it clatter, silencing the room without effort. Mr. Gideon pulled out his phone and typed furiously. The result: access denied, data classified. Everyone realized Elara wasn't just military. She was a product of a program scrubbed from history. A trainer whispered, "There was a rumor of a female operative who took down 14 targets in 4 minutes. Silent kills." Someone asked, "What's your real name?" Elara replied, "I used to have no name, but now just call me a regular customer." A competitive shooter with medals dangling from his lanyard, his posture ramrod straight. Riker, the ambitious type who steps on rivals to shine in tournaments but fears true unknowns, advanced with a chuckle that masked his unease. "Ghost tag? Fake engraving. I've won nationals. You couldn't touch my scores on a good day." A few enthusiasts, club members with matching shirts, one with a clipboard, taunted, "Fake. She's all show, no substance. Scores? She'd zero out." Riker dangled a medal. "Engrave your lies elsewhere. Prove it or vanish." The vibe electrified, Riker's lanyard swinging, Elara's posture aligned sharper, a shoulder rolling back minutely. The enthusiast grinned. "Show's over!" However, the bullet's alloy reflected a holographic stamp, an erased ops verification that made the medal slip from his fingers. The cruelty clung on, desperate. The clerk behind the counter, a young kid with acne and an attitude, Blaine, demanded ID. Elara pulled out a faded silver card. He laughed. "This expired 8 years ago." Someone shouted, "She's using a fake ID. Call the cops." Another gun dealer sneered. "Ghost what? Still has to show her papers like everyone else." Elara silently put the ID away and said, "Because I don't belong in your system." A customs officer off shift, his uniform half unzipped, Officer Kiro, the bureaucratic bully who wields rules like weapons to compensate for his stalled career, scrutinized the card before she pocketed it. "System? Try the lost and found. I've denied visas for less. You're not clearing this checkpoint." The dealers, a duo with ledger books, one with ink smudges, jeered. "Checkpoint. Banned for life. She's toast." Officer Kiro stamped a form. "Deny your access or beg off." The pressure mounted, Kiro's zipper rattling. Elara's gaze steadied, her thumb pressing into the card's crease. The dealer laughed. "Toast indeed!" But the card's embedded thread glowed faintly, a presidential clearance thread that halted Kiro's stamp, his eyes widening in disbelief. Outside the Phoenix Armory, The world was about to witness the final, undeniable act of Alara Stone's revelation. The distinct, rhythmic whir of rotor blades grew steadily louder, cutting through the tense silence that had fallen over the gun store. A federal helicopter, sleek and black, descended from the clear Arizona sky, touching down with a powerful gust of wind in the parking lot. Dust kicked up in swirling plumes, forcing onlookers to shield their eyes as it landed, drawing everyone's stunned stare through the store's large display windows. A figure emerged from the helicopter, tall and composed in a dark, impeccably tailored suit, radiating an aura of quiet authority that permeated the very air. This was General Ares Vex, Alara Stone's husband, though at that moment his identity was known only to a select few. He strode towards the store entrance, the door jingling softly as he pushed it open, his presence immediately shifting the entire dynamic inside. Mr. Gideon, the store owner, straightened, his usual detached demeanor replaced by an almost military stiffness. The mercenary type in the corner averted his eyes, recognizing a superior force. Karen, the receptionist who had been so smug, watched him approach, her face draining of all color, her carefully constructed facade crumbling into dust. General Ares Vex didn't speak much. His communication subtle, powerful. He moved directly to Alara Stone, his gaze locked on hers, and handed her a sealed envelope without a single word. His ring, a simple, plain band, caught the harsh store lights, glinting. It was the same plain band Alara wore, hidden usually under her sleeve, a silent, intimate bond revealed in the most public of settings. The envelope, crisp and official, bore the stark message, urgent recall. Mission Class C, signed by the President. Mr. Gideon, unable to contain his bewildered curiosity any longer, finally broke the silence. "Who are you really?" he asked, his voice hushed, filled with a newfound respect. Alara, holding the letter that dictated her immediate future, walked toward the exit. Her voice was calm, utterly devoid of triumph or arrogance, simply stating a profound truth. "I just came to buy a few old rounds," she said, her gaze fixed on the doors leading back to the outside world. "But it seems peace still isn't mine." A tech-savvy analyst with glasses perched low on his nose, his fingers hovering over a scanner gadget, Cypher, the intellectual snob who used technology to belittle others while concealing his own deep isolation, attempted to scan the envelope from afar. His gadget beeped officiously. "Class Z fabricated seal," he declared, his voice filled with smug certainty. "I've decoded fakes before. You won't hack past me." His aides, a cluster of interns with tablets, one with coffee spills staining his shirt, ridiculed her, emboldened by Cypher's apparent expertise. "Hack! She's binary trash! Decode fail!" Cypher beeped again, a performative flourish. "Seal your fraud or disconnect." The air buzzed with tension, the gadget humming. Alara's envelope, folded crisply in her palm, remained untouched by their scanner. The interns snickered. "This old way?" Trash confirmed. But suddenly, the seal's quantum layer, a technology far beyond Cypher's comprehension, silently decrypted a direct Oval Office link. His screen short-circuited instantly, emitting a puff of smoke, leaving him staring at a blank, useless device. His expertise and arrogance collapsing in a single silent moment. In the days that followed, reality caught up with those who'd mocked Ilara Stone. These were not dramatic revenge scenes, no theatrical retribution played out for public consumption. They were simply consequences, inevitable and relentless, unfolding like dominoes, one tipping the next, balancing the scales. Ilara didn't gloat. She didn't turn back to rub it in. She just kept walking, her silence now carrying a weight far heavier than any spoken word. She didn't need to prove anything because the proof was all around her, written in the shattered lives and reputations of those who had misjudged her. Karen, the receptionist, was quietly let go. It turned out the shop's owners, who had deep ties to government contracts and military suppliers, couldn't risk the association. A quick internal audit flagged her consistently negative attitude and unprofessional conduct as a significant liability, especially after the high-profile incident. She ended up job hunting, her social media posts turning bitter and desperate, filled with angry rants, but no one cared. Her name became synonymous with petty arrogance in the local professional network. Grizzly, the old-timer who always boasted about his Vietnam stories, found his hunting club membership abruptly revoked. Word of his public verbal assault on Ilara and his subsequent humiliation had spread through his tightly knit social circles. His so-called friends, the ones he'd shared whiskey and war stories with for decades, subtly distanced themselves, leaving him alone at the bar, his booming voice silenced by isolation, his proud tales ringing hollow. Instructor Vance, the burly man who had built his fragile ego by picking on newcomers, faced a damning expose online. An anonymous source, perhaps one of the cadets he had tormented, leaked videos of his past rants, his condescending remarks, and his questionable training methods. The leaks cost him lucrative sponsorships from major gear brands. His carefully cultivated image as an authority shattered. He vanished from the professional circuit, humbled and disgraced, unable to find work in the industry he once dominated. Jackson Reed, the tall man with tattoos who had tried to humiliate Ilara by challenging her to lift the heavy rifle, faced his own reckoning. He was exposed in an online forum, a dedicated community of firearms trainers, for faking his credentials and grossly exaggerating his own combat experience. The exposure led to him losing lucrative gigs as a trainer and being blacklisted from reputable circles. His carefully constructed facade of toughness crumbled, revealing the insecure fraud beneath. Lord Vane, the snobby collector in the designer jacket, found his rare and valuable gun pieces coming under intense scrutiny. A quiet tip, possibly from the same anonymous source, led to a federal tax probe that uncovered illicit dealings and drained his substantial accounts. His passion, once a symbol of his elevated status, became the instrument of his financial ruin, leaving him financially crippled. The man in tactical gear, Cadet Orion, who had tried to assert his dominance after the shooting demonstration, saw his contracts dry up almost overnight. Whispers of unreliability, unprofessionalism, and a poor temperament began to follow him through the industry. His bureaucratic bullying, once a means of control and advancement, now served as a black mark on his record, making him unemployable in the high-stakes world of private security. The old sniper, white-haired and grizzled, who had criticized Ilara's stance, retired early, shunned by his peers who now held a new understanding of true marksmanship. The young clerk, Blaine, who had openly mocked Ilara at the counter, found himself demoted, his cockiness shattered by the weight of the incident. He couldn't handle the new, subdued atmosphere of the store, nor the silent judgment from the remaining customers. He eventually quit, his attitude finally breaking under the sheer weight of his own misjudgment and the invisible force of Ilara's legacy. The overall gun dealership, Phoenix Armory, while not formally penalized, lost clients, and its reputation was subtly but irrevocably tarnished by the association, with the widely discussed incident forcing Mr. Gideon to implement stricter hiring practices and a more respectful customer service policy to try and regain trust. None of it was dramatic, no theatrical revenge scenes played out in public. It was just consequences unfolding like dominoes, tipping one by one, a quiet, inexorable force balancing the scales of justice. Ilara Stone didn't look back, didn't gloat, didn't utter a single word of triumph. She just kept moving, her silence now a shield and a powerful, undeniable statement. A figure in the back, shrouded in a hooded sweatshirt hiding his features, typed furiously on his phone. This was Silas, the anonymous tipper, a character who thrived on chaos and exposing hypocrisy but dreaded backlash. He muttered into his collar mic, his voice barely audible. Peace denied. Dramatic exit. But I've leaked. Oops, you're exposed now. His followers, online lurkers who reveled in anonymity, peeked in, one with multiple anonymous accounts typing, "He's exposed, she's done." Silas mic'd again, "Leak your facade or fade." The whispers amplified. Ilara Stone's steps paused at the chopper door, her envelope tucked away, the wind whipping around her. The lurker typed furiously, convinced of his victory. Done deal. Yet, at that precise moment, the mic feedback from Silas's device revealed his own classified breach, a sophisticated reverse trace initiated by General Ares, Vex's network that silenced his feed permanently, erasing his digital footprint in an instant, a testament to the General's far-reaching capabilities. As the chopper lifted off, the rhythmic thud of its rotor blades growing louder and more distant, Ilara Stone glanced down at the shrinking gun shop below, a tiny speck on the vast landscape. Her hand rested on the sealed envelope in her pocket, its contents a reminder of the world she truly belonged to. The world below blurred, becoming indistinct, but the weight of it all lingered. The judgments, the dramatic reveals, the quiet vindication. She leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment, the steady rhythm of the blades a comforting pulse. It hurt to be unseen, to carry profound truths no one bothers to look for, to be so utterly dismissed. But moments like that, the silent understanding from Colonel Sterling, the awe of the cadets, the crushing consequences for her tormentors, reminded her that dignity isn't given. It's held, fiercely and unyielding, even when the entire room turns against you. We've all been there, dismissed for not fitting the mold, for being different, for carrying an unseen strength. And coming out the other side, that's where the true strength shows. Hold on to that. You're not alone in the fight. And so, Ilara Stone's journey reminds us how easily we misjudge hidden strength. She faced mockery, dismissed as clueless, yet revealed a profound knowledge and skill that froze an entire gun store. Her silent resilience, her classified past, and her undeniable capabilities redefined what it means to be powerful. The quiet acts of justice that followed, where her tormentors faced the consequences of their own arrogance, prove that truth always finds a way. This is the kind of story Veteran Biker loves to share. Tales of courage, unexpected heroes, and the profound lessons hidden in plain sight. If Alara's journey resonated with you, hit that like button. It helps us know what stories connect most. And if you haven't already, subscribe and join the Veteran Biker community. What was the most impactful moment for you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your perspectives. And don't miss more incredible stories. Check out the videos appearing on your screen right now. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for being part of the Veteran Biker journey.